Welcome to Two Minds, One Mystery, where we explore true crime around Asia. I'm your host, Suren.
And I'm Yvonne.
Disclaimer: today's content involves sensitive subject matters that may be distressing to some listeners. This includes topics such as sexual assault, dismembering, suicide, cannibalism, and many more gruesome acts. We understand that these topics can be triggering for some individuals, and we want to ensure that our listeners are aware of the nature of today's discussion. If you believe that these subjects may be difficult for you to listen to, we encourage you to skip this episode and join us for another topic that suits your preferences. Now, let's start with today's episode.
Today, we're going to continue with the many more heinous crimes of the raincoat killer, Yoo Young-Chul. It actually gets worse with today's edition because this is where he starts his reign on the many escorts and the one really funny change in his killing pattern. His first killing of 2004 actually started on the 16th of March. So remember last week when I mentioned during his break in killings, he was actually pretending to be a police officer?
Yeah, I think I remember last week you were talking about how he pretended to be a police officer just to kind of get money from people or something like that, right?
Yeah. Now he's doing it even worse, for even worse things.
Oh my god, so this time he's actually using the identity as a police officer to kill people.
Yup. Well, in this case, like I mentioned, he literally used it in result somebody died because he killed them. So, as disguised as a police officer conducting a crackdown on sex workers, he tried to entice his first victim, Jin-hee. Sorry if I butchered her name. So he basically tried to offer her a quote-unquote business trip massage as a pretense to get her to his apartment room.
Oh god.
Yeah. So she agreed, and then he then brought her back to his place, and upon reaching, he straight away just ended her life by strangling her. So what followed was a bunch of gruesome sequences of events, and the first thing he did was he dismembered her body. He dismembered her body with a jackknife in his hand. A jackknife isn't exactly a huge knife. It's pretty small when you think about cutting a chicken, I guess. Because I feel when people talk about dismembering, it's pretty damaging to talk about it. So in an easier way to understand, it's basically cutting a chicken with the smallest knife you have in your house. Because he used such a small knife on an entire human body, he first removed her head with a tiny little knife. So he chopped her head off and he left it suspended on a trash can to drain the blood. And then after removing her head, he brought her to the toilet, and then he cut off her arms, her legs, and separating it from the torso. He actually cut it in the shower with the water on and everything, with music playing in the background.
It's really showing how he's really enjoying everything, the whole process, taking his time.
It shows that, yeah, like you said, he was really enjoying it, which is pretty really sick to think about. How can you enjoy cutting a person's body? But I don't know if you remember last episode, I did mention that his recent girlfriend, well, recent at the time, actually broke up with him, and she was an escort as well.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So I mean, at this point, I guess we can say that it's kind of like revenge murder as well.
Yes, revenge murder. With him playing music in the background, you can tell he really is enjoying it.
Yeah.
He's really found his niche, because this wasn't the first and only person he dismembered. He did it I would say, doing the maths, about 9 times after that.
What?
Yes. 9 times. So you want to know what he did next? To conceal his horrific acts, he divided her parts into 10 small plastic bags, and then later consolidated it into 4 larger bags. And you can tell he really tried to think of every single move he's gonna do to not get caught. So he basically called a taxi and literally sat in the taxi with her remains, and went all the way to Sogang University Library to go to a secluded trail behind, under a tree.
Wait.
He went to a secluded area behind that university library.
I mean, I guess I get that it's secluded, but isn't it kind of odd that he chose to actually dump her remains in a place where, a lot of students and people may actually encounter the body?
I was thinking the exact same thing. Because if you were to think about like trying to what's that, not get away with murder in a way, you wouldn't go
Right.
to a place where like a bunch of young people go all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And because like last time there wasn't even Google, like they would literally have to go to a library, read books and like find information. But he chose to do it behind a library.
Yeah, exactly. It feels almost like he's trying his luck. He's testing waters.
Yeah. Like like you said, he's really enjoying it. He likes that thrill, Because what person would choose a library if they didn't like the thrill of like, ooh, maybe I'll get caught? After he dumped her body, he actually kept the bags. So he literally like discarded her bodies out of the bag and he kept the plastic bag. He was afraid that there would be like incriminating evidence, aka fingerprints on the plastic bag.
I guess that makes sense since after his whole record of like leaving footprints, right, in the previous
Yeah.
episode.
But wouldn't his DNA be on the body still? But then again, this was like early 2000s.
Yeah, but like if you think about it, he's so meticulous about cleaning everything up. Every time he just tries to previously tries to clean up the scene and whatnot. I would assume he tries to clean like any traces of potential fingerprints on the bodies as well.
He did do it in the shower, so that would explain that. Yeah. So let's move on to the next murder. So I feel like this next murder is where your brain will get tickled because he kills a street vendor next. Yeah. This was the change in his pattern.
Yeah, it's so random. It's so different. It's not like a rich person. It's not like an escort. It's not like a sex worker as well.
Yeah.
Why?
Honestly, after reading this case, it seems like he just did it for fun. Because there was literally no motive to kill this guy. Because he was just like, he just murdered a random 44-year-old street vendor. He murdered him on the 14th of April.
Wait, who is this street vendor? What does the street vendor do?
He was selling like fake Viagra and pornography. Which I don't understand why he cares. Because he then again used his fake police officer badge, fake ID to like try and take the guy in. So he was basically like packing up for the day, like the street vendor was packing up for the day, and he was like heading up to his van, which is where the raincoat killer basically like showed his fake ID and tried to accuse him of like violating the Pharmaceutical Affairs Act. And on top of that, he then proceeded to handcuff him and put him in the passenger seat of his own van, of the street vendor's van.
Whoa, hold up. That is such a red flag.
Right.
Wouldn't like the street vendor just suspect it immediately? Like, bro, it's not even the police officer's car and whatnot.
He actually did become suspicious because he recognized the fake ID, also combined with the fact that he was driving his van, and also like there wasn't another officer with him. So like, why would it be so random? So he actually did suspect him of being like a fake. But then what he did after was like really horrible, and until today I don't understand why. So what he did was he parked at Segang Orthopedic Surgery Clinic and he just grabbed the street vendor's face and like stabbed him in the neck and head. After doing that, he laid him under like the back seat of the van. But then the street vendor, because he was alive, he actually kicked Yoo. But okay. Disclaimer, there will be like a bunch of uncomfortable information being told. What Yoo did was he actually stabbed the street vendor's thigh and he tried to cover him with a bag. And again, he took out his hammer and he beat his head with a hammer about 20 times. And to add salt to the wound, Wu also chopped the street vendor's hands off.
Oh my god.
But while he was like trying to chop his hands off, Wu actually cut himself, like during the whole ordeal. Yoo being Yoo, he proceeded to burn the whole van to destroy any evidence.
Just like what he did with the previous house when he broke into the house, right?
Yep, he burned the house down because his blood was in the house. And you know what? What's the funny thing? The way he set the van on fire is exactly the same as how he set the house on fire. He used the street vendor's dead body He put like newspaper and a bunch of stuff like cloth around him, and he actually went to his apartment to clean up and change his clothes.
Bruh.
Before he set him on fire, he went to go and change his clothes, and after that, he actually got back to the car. He drove to Wolmido in Chon around like 1 a.m. and he parked at a gas station parking lot. He parked the van like in between two tanker trucks. Tanker trucks, if you don't know, are those trucks that are like filled with like freaking gasoline. So he tried to basically cause an explosion using the van, but it didn't work. But the van was still on fire. It's just there wasn't any explosion. So he burned the car and the body, obviously. This particular murder was like well reported at the time in Korea, and it left the victim's family like devastated.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine like you just switching on the TV and it's all over the news, your own family member just being tormented like that.
Especially when you find out like the gruesome details of what happened to them.
Exactly. Like what happened to the family?
Trigger warning, there'll be mention of suicide. So the victim's two brothers actually committed suicide, and the remaining brother attempted suicide but failed and is now living in a psychiatric treatment. So that was really sad lah. I feel really bad for the street vendor's family. No matter if he was like selling things illegally, but like he doesn't deserve to die. Come on.
Just overuse one like one random killing like that. Just literally he's just preying on random people out in the streets like that.
Yep.
God. And you've already mentioned how this isn't his only killing. He even killed more people.
Yes, he actually, after killing the street vendor, he went back to killing a bunch of escorts. This is where he just went on like killing one escort after another, after another, after another. So I will go through like one of the few murders, because the way he murdered like all the other escorts were basically all the same. But with this particular escort, he did use the same excuse as the other one, the Jin Hee one in March. Instead, they had intercourse. Yeah. So he had intercourse with her, and after that she saw like handcuffs and she began to feel like really uncomfortable. And then, okay, this part is really weird because I even fact checked it and it's correct. He basically took her to the bathroom and he tickled her playfully.
Why?
I don't know whether this was like a translation error or something, but he went to go and tickle her in the bathroom.
What the?
But then,
maybe
yeah,
that's his kink, like,
right?
I don't know, man. Like, there are handcuffs, bathrooms. I don't know, man. I don't want to leave that possibility out. It could be a kink.
I actually have like extra info about that, but I'll get through it. I'll get to it like after his like trial and everything, because I have like tidbits about the crime. Because I want to go and search for more information on like Korean media websites, because those really have more info. Yeah. Okay, back to the case. After he tickled her, he actually, like, she crouched. You know, like when you tickle someone, they like scrunch like into their body. After she did that, he bludgeoned her unconscious with his hammer. Don't you realize that this is also a pattern that he has? Like, he likes to strike from above.
Oh, okay. Now that you mention it, it's starting to get really obvious.
Remember the house where he went to and he forced like the grandma to like, sorry,
Like, yeah.
the house owner's wife to like kneel down, and then after that
Yeah.
yeah. He likes it when his victims are kneeled down or crouched down. In a way, it's like they're in a vulnerable position. Okay, this is part one of the tidbit that I found. So he would tend to show affection and tenderness like before killing his victims, for especially the escorts.
Okay, I see. I can see why. Since you've mentioned in your part 1 series that he dated like an escort,
Yeah.
things like that. So I mean, I guess at some point maybe he tried to, like project his anger onto the future sex workers as well. But the affection and tenderness maybe stemmed from his previous partner, maybe.
Either that or like he prefers people to be vulnerable. Because why would you talk to them, get to know them, or like even sleep with them if you weren't like wanting them to be in a vulnerable state? You get what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's just preying on like vulnerable people at this rate.
Yes. So after he beat the poor woman, he decapitated her with his jackknife again in the bathroom. But this time she was still alive. So he basically dismembered her body and also cut off her fingertips with scissors, and he flushed it down the toilet.
Huh?
Yeah. And this wasn't the only time he actually did this. Like I mentioned, like the first escort that he dismembered, he went on to do it like with all the other victims. So he would actually mutilate his victims' bodies into 16 to 18 pieces. And he did this like new method with like 9 more escorts. He actually like selectively was like choosing the women that he wanted to kill. He wanted people who were slim and shorter. You know why?
Why?
Because it would be easier for him to dismember and dispose of them.
Oh my god.
But actually, him being choosy was like, not gonna lie, part of his downfall. It played a part in him getting caught. But I'll get into that. No spoilers here. So it was believed that he would target this woman because of his resentment to his ex-wife. His ex-wife was actually a masseuse.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why he would ask all these ladies to like, the business trip massage. Yeah. And also, like I mentioned, like his ex-girlfriend was an escort. So he actually committed his last murder on the 13th of July 2004. Remember that date, yeah? Because you won't believe what happens like 2 days after that. But before that, let's take a look into his background, his early years, and see what caused him to snap and like target such specific people with his killing sprees. Yoo Young-Chul was born in 1970 in Gochang-gun, South Korea. His parents separated quickly soon after his birth, and Yoo was raised along with his siblings by his grandmother for a few years until they moved in with their father in the Mapo district of Seoul. Yoo's parents were blue-collar workers who often had money problems, and the gap between social classes in Korea were due to the financial crisis that the country fell into in 1997, where the rich got richer and the poor became poorer. This poverty was one of the reasons he was made fun of in class, which planted in him the resentment towards wealthy. So we know now why he targeted rich people. And he was actually denied admission to a high school, especially that specializes in arts.
I'm seeing something familiar.
Right. I cannot be the only one that thinks this way. If you know, you know. If you don't, I'm so sorry. Okay, so during his high school years, this is where he began his life of crime. And he spent a lot of time in juvenile detention for thievery. So he continued to steal into his adulthood, from cash to cameras to cars. And he spent time like in and out of jail throughout the 90s as a way to like provide for his young family. Yes, he had a son with his then wife.
Oh my god, how does he even kill when he has a son? How does he blatantly just kill and not think about the repercussions that will happen to his son? His son's still young, right?
Yeah, he was still pretty young. But doesn't that answer the question? Like, remember last week when I said like the house with the baby and they like burned down the house and all that?
Oh my
Maybe
god.
that's why he didn't kill the baby, if you think about it.
Yeah, like, dude, it would match up. Like, the baby would probably be maybe just a couple of years younger than his son.
Yes, it would. Maybe a toddler to like a young child. But it seriously does explain the reason why he didn't kill the baby. And he just like wrapped it. But then again, he still did set the house on fire, so I don't know if that's still justified.
I think he really has no, he has no thoughts for his family. Maybe that's why he's actually just blatantly doing this out of anger.
Yeah. So trigger warning, there will be a mention of SA. So in 2000, Yoo was arrested for the rape of a 15-year-old girl. This was mainly the reason his wife divorced him. So she divorced him like while he was serving time in prison. He served time for about 3.5 years.
That's it?
Yeah, for raping a 15-year-old girl. Anyways, When he was released from prison in 2002, he basically tried to earn his money by extorting from pimps and escorts using a fake police ID. That's where it started. That's why he started using the fake police ID. That's how he got all his money. How do you think he can afford to stay in a freaking office hell? From here on out in the case, it just keeps getting juicier and juicier. So listeners, strap in because it gets crazy. Because we're gonna talk about how he got caught, his trial, his sentencing, and many more. So remember when I told you to, keep in mind the date of his final murder?
Yeah, 13th of July, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 13th of July.
Yep. So just 2 days after committing his last murder, he was apprehended on July 15, 2004. In an effort to avoid arousing suspicion about his activities, he used different aliases when contacting the sex workers businesses. But unbeknownst to him, all these establishments were owned by the same person, Mr. Noh, spelled N-O-H. So Mr. Noh found it very suspicious that one of his girls he had sent out for a job had gone missing, and he suspected a possible kidnapping. Moreover, 2 other women had vanished under similar circumstances after responding to calls from a specific phone number, with the end numbers being 6523. Upon further inquiry, Mr. Noh learned that yet another woman had disappeared after receiving a call from the same number. This common phone number was actually registered to a deceased mother of a girl who had gone missing in late June. This was basically a really concerning and disturbing pattern, because even though he was a pimp, his business is really being affected by it. He actually reached out to Inspector Yang from the Mobile Investigation Unit. As fate would have it, a call from the same number came in at 2 a.m. on July 15. So Mr. Noh immediately reached out to his superiors, his colleagues, and Inspector Yang. They decided to split up, with one of them accompanying a woman in a taxi, intending to follow her to the rear of Sinchon Grand Mart. Yu, the suspect, he actually made several calls during this time. First, he altered the meeting location. He then complained about the woman's height, and he made another request for a different woman. Remember I said he wanted women of specific heights and all that, and I said it would be his downfall? Yes, it's because of this. While all that was going on, Inspector Yang, he tirelessly searched for the man's phone number in parks, alleys, in any effort to track down the culprit. Eventually, Yu expressed his preference for the third woman. So Yu arrived to the designated location where the man approached him and conducted a body search. Inspector Yang, who had rushed to the scene, handcuffed him. In a suspicious move, Yu began chewing vigorously, prompting the man to try and stop him and pry his mouth open. What he was trying to do was he was trying to chew and destroy several business trip massage cards. This was crucial evidence. But during this struggle, Yu's phone actually fell out, which provided a crucial piece of evidence. Dun dun dun, the last digits of the phone number, which were 6523. So Yu was taken to the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency Mobile Investigation Unit. This is where he initially was regarded as a suspected thief, because they lacked concrete evidence to link him to the murders, and the only thing they had was his phone number, which was a stolen phone number actually. That's why they got him in. However, the individuals who aided in his apprehension played a significant role in the investigation. So they provided crucial information that confirmed Yu's history of impersonating police officers. Right after that, Wu quickly confessed to the gruesome crimes, admitting to the murder of 26 individuals, beginning with the elderly couple in Sinsadong to the last woman he had killed just 2 days prior.
His whole entire personality is so triggering, pisses the shit out of me.
Right. It really does piss you off. And I feel like this part of the case will piss you off even more.
Tell me about it.
So while he was in custody, I'm sorry, I'm laughing just because like of the audacity of this guy. I'm not laughing because it's funny, but seriously, you need to hear this part. So while he was in police custody, he faked a seizure as a ruse to escape. Like he basically faked having a seizure. And what the police did was they removed his handcuffs and they left him unattended with a freaking door open, which made it so easy for him to flee. And guess what? He did make it out. He made his way to his residence to dispose of incriminating evidence before heading to a motel. He was like purchasing 360 sleeping pills. He was basically, if you don't know, he was trying to end his life. But despite his escape, the authorities, thankfully, managed to actually recapture him approximately 11 to 12 hours later. You know why? Because a mobile patrol spotted him at a roundabout crosswalk. And upon his second arrest, he again confessed to all his crimes, revealing that he would engage his victims in lengthy conversations about their personal life for about an hour before carrying out the murders. So during his time in custody, he provided like conflicting accounts of his actions, but eventually he agreed to lead the police to the locations of the victims' bodies. And throughout this process, he was actually made to wear a yellow raincoat and a mask to conceal his identity, which led to the by-name of Raincoat Killer, which is a term that is actually more widely used in international media rather than in Korea. But like, it's kind of odd that he would choose that name because he didn't wear a raincoat killing the people. He only wore the raincoat like when after he got caught.
I feel like perhaps the international media like dubbed him by the name of Raincoat Killer, perhaps because maybe it's easier for them to really pronounce his name, perhaps, compared to really like, you know, mentioning his name on and on again. Because I would assume that international media would, you know, cover regions that aren't just in Asia. Yeah, and you know, names that you aren't familiar with could be kind of tricky to really pronounce properly.
Yeah, but when you actually read into the case, like, there's no raincoat involved. The raincoat only comes later.
Yeah, at some point I feel like that's a little bit of a, perhaps a, I don't know, media gap, perhaps a limitation to it. It's a little bit misleading even.
Yeah, back to the case. So they actually went to his apartment, and upon search, was found to be a remarkably clean and orderly apartment. He basically maintained an obsessively neat scrapbook. He cleaned everything. And he claimed to have oh god, okay, this part is disgusting. So he actually confessed to having consumed the internal organs of 4 victims, and his reasoning to it was supposedly to cleanse his spirit or cure his epilepsy, even though there was no conclusive evidence to support this claim.
Oh my god. Did he really just think that, you know, like, oh, if I consume the liver of my victims, I would really have no epilepsy? Did he really just
It's pretty much like he's just pulling it out of his butt. This kind of like claims. Why would you just randomly think about, you know, cleansing his spirit to cure his epilepsy? Which he didn't even have epilepsy in the end. On top of that, this is even worse. I feel like this is okay now. Maybe not worse than eating a person, but in terms of like the family, he actually admitted that he would continue his killing spree if he had not been apprehended.
What is the police doing? Has justice been served? Just tell me about the justice part at this rate.
Well, let's talk about his trial then. His trial was actually on September 6th of 2004. He actually made his initial appearance in court. He was facing a total of 21 murder charges. Okay, I just want to put a disclaimer for this part. Not really a disclaimer, but like a, I don't know, like a note. When I look at international media, the international media says 20 murder charges. The Korean media said it was 21 charges. So yeah, it was between like 20 to 21 charges, so I don't actually know which one is the correct one.
But I feel like across all this media, whether it's 20 or 21, it actually kind of showed a little bit of discrepancy between, you know, what he has been charged with and what he actually admitted to.
Right?
Yeah,
You
there's
26, but you get charged for 21 or
yeah.
20.
Yeah, exactly. There's some discrepancies there.
Yeah, it's very obvious from his sentencing. During his first court appearance, oh god, this is such a. Okay, you know how he's a cocky person? During his first court appearance, he expressed remorse to the families of the victim. Yeah. But shockingly, he reiterated that he had no intentions of halting his murderous spree. He admitted to the freaking families. And even after that, okay, this guy, right? He declared his refusal to attend court proceedings. Yet, just 2 weeks later, he unexpectedly reappeared.
Oh, excuse my language, but that sounds like a he problem, dude.
Right? But that's so rude. Like, who are you to tell the judge, like, oh, I don't want to be here?
Exactly, like, I mean, you are the one who decided to go on a killing spree and just murder
Right.
innocent people.
Yeah.
At least face the music, or, at the very least,
Yeah.
stand up to the claims. What the hell?
Oh, it gets worse. Sorry, I just hit the mic. On this occasion, he even made a violent attempt to attack the freaking judge by lunging at them. There's actually a picture of like how he tried to lunge at it in one of the websites. So that being said, you can actually check out all the evidence, pictures, and videos on our Instagram at 2minds1mystery. Now, on October 25th, Wu attempted to assault a courtroom spectator who was like cursing at him. He was like really, really cursing, like going hard at him, and he tried to attack that person. And following this incident, he surprisingly agreed not to cause any more disruptions. But guess what?
Oh,
Astonishingly, he directly addressed the victim's family. Like, he basically assured that the women he had murdered deserved what he had done to
what?
them. Yeah, directly to the family. He stood there and said with his whole chest that these women deserve what they got. The audacity of this dude, I can't. He literally pisses me off.
Same. I don't even know what to say at this rate.
Ultimately, on December 13th, he was then convicted of 20 counts of murder and received the death sentence as punishment due to a prevailing law in the country that stipulated compensation for victims' families. So they basically gave compensation to all the victims' families, and the government actually stepped into like financial compensation to the affected families. So this is the good news for the victims' families. But what happened to him directly was really disappointing. So, as of today, he is currently incarcerated at Daegu prison, where he resides on death row among 58 to 59 other inmates awaiting execution. I'm pretty sure the number has increased because this was like the number in like early 2000s.
What the hell? He's still alive.
He's still alive. And this was updated as of 2021. And literally the last instance of carrying out prosecutions for those on death row occurring back in like 1997 and the following year, moratorium was put in place, effectively suspending any further executions. After the trial, let's move on to some fun facts, after learning about what actually happened to him and him not being able to be executed even though he's on death row, basically. During his court cases, like there were literally like 119 emergency personnel standby during the court case, like in case anything broke out, or like after his sentencing he was like and even after his sentencing he was like escorted by 10 prison guards. 10. Like if you see pictures of him, he's not a big guy. He is relatively skinny and quite small, and the fact that 10 prison guards like literally had to escort him out of the area is pretty scary.
I mean, can you blame them after this guy tried to escape, faking his
Oh
seizure and
yeah,
all those?
I don't know why that didn't occur to me. Yeah, he did escape, but then again, the way he escaped isn't exactly his fault, not gonna lie.
I mean, now at the very least, the police and emergency personnel have learned their lesson right now.
True. True. Okay. 10 prison guards are justified now. Okay. This one is literally gonna blow your mind. Like, I bet you it's gonna blow your mind. During his proceedings, he actually confessed. He made another confession. So in this confession, he actually admitted to purposely murdering one of the masseuses, like extra brutally, just because she had the same name as, okay, quoted by him, the same name as the woman who, in his words, abandoned him. This particular escort, right? I actually found like extra details. So in the investigation records, it was stated that she was killed with a hammer, but in fact her entire body was cut with a box cutter, and he actually tried to like bleed her out to death. But she didn't die even after an hour. Like, she was still alive. So after that, because she didn't die, he killed her by hitting her with a grinder. Oh, okay, but after all this sadness, I actually have good news! As of recently, to be more exact, on the 23rd of August this year, Korea actually announced that they will be increasing the number of CCTV cameras, especially in like city parks and all that. So they did this to increase the safety of their female residents.
Oh yeah, so you know how you mentioned about like in this episode we actually talked about you and whatnot, right? I actually, because I was designing the collateral for this episode as well, I actually found like, you know, a Netflix documentary about him.
Yeah,
Have you seen it? Yeah,
I saw part of it.
Dude, like, it's actually very well documented when I was
Yeah.
watching it. Do you remember what it's called already? I only remember like there was like a hammer that was featured on the poster.
It was, I think if I'm not wrong, it's like his hammer and then his face, but with the raincoat. If I'm not wrong, it's called Raincoat Killer. Oh, sorry, the Raincoat Killer Chasing a Predator in Korea.
Oh yeah, that's the one, It's like, yeah, dude, literally, okay, I'm pretty sure both of us, like, when you were telling me about, like, wanting to do an episode about this guy, I actually went out and looked at his photo, right, and I noticed, like, dude, this guy literally looks like any other person on the street, dude.
When I was looking at his face, I was like, this is a guy I wouldn't even look at. I wouldn't even double take. I wouldn't even think that he would do stuff like that. You would just think like, oh, that's just a guy, and you would just walk by.
Exactly. Like,
Look, a random dude. He just looks like a normal dude. Like,
exactly. Dude,
it makes your skin crawl, you know.
exactly, and let's not forget, he is also a father of someone. He's someone's father. His son is still out there.
Yes. I feel like it's not fair to the kid because the kid had nothing to do with it. It's not like he chose for that dude to be his father, you know.
I hope at the very least, like, the government's doing something to try to protect the son. Even though, like, a lot of people may hate the father and whatnot, the son has nothing to do with it. So just think about it, the whole entire use case, him just doing all these without, you know, bearing in mind of his own family, his son just right there.
Yeah. So what you think isn't like gonna affect you might affect another person like really, really badly. Thank you, listeners, for listening. We post every week, every Thursday at 5 p.m. I hope you enjoy our podcast so far. Please do follow our Instagram at 2 Minds 1 Mystery, where we will be posting the evidence pictures of all the cases we discuss about and updates. And with that, stay curious, stay cautious, and may the clues always lead you to the truth. Until next time, keep your wits sharp and your suspicions sharper. This has been 2 Minds, 1 Mystery, where mysteries unravel and secrets are revealed.